Listen, I have this wife. Her name is Robyn, and she would never let me do anything naughty. Bad as I want to do it.
Ladies, grab your reading glasses because we're about to dissect the most manipulative power play in reality television history, and it's happening right under our noses on Sister Wives Season 20. Picture this scene: a modest living room in Flagstaff, late evening shadows creeping across worn furniture, and Kody Brown sitting with his phone pressed to his ear. The voice on the other end belongs to a TLC producer, and what they're proposing sounds less like a television opportunity and more like a carefully orchestrated trap.
I have never done speed dating before.
What's your love language?
My love language is physical touch.
Sources close to the production whisper that this wasn't your typical pre-season planning call. This was what insiders describe as the ultimatum conversation, the moment when Kody realized he wasn't negotiating his participation in Sister Wives Season 20. He was being informed of his requirements. The difference might seem subtle, but for a man who built his entire public persona on being the patriarch making the decisions, it represents a complete power reversal. Here's what allegedly happened during that phone call, according to multiple sources familiar with the situation. The producer laid out a very specific list of scenarios that would need to unfold on camera. Not suggestions, not creative brainstorming, requirements.
How much longer until you just realize that he's an ass?
I'm not trying to make us back together in any way, Mary.
We are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Kody would sit down face-to-face with each of his 3 ex-wives for individual apology sessions. He would participate in that cringe-worthy playdate with Christine's new husband, David. And perhaps most telling of all, he would do it with a smile and present it as his own idea for healing and moving forward. The woman who's balanced a household budget while someone else made unilateral financial decisions knows exactly what leverage sounds like. This wasn't a conversation between equals. This was a network that had done its homework, identified exactly where Kody was most vulnerable, and applied pressure with surgical precision. But here's where it gets even more interesting and, frankly, more disturbing. Sources suggest that TLC didn't just present these requirements as creative direction for good television, they allegedly presented them as the only path forward for Kody to maintain his primary source of income.
We talked about the spiritual divorce, and I think I'm ready.
I love that you're doing this, Janelle.
The subtext was crystal clear. Participate in these scenarios exactly as scripted, or watch your paycheck disappear along with your 3 ex-wives. Now, before we dive deeper into this rabbit hole, let's acknowledge what we're really looking at here. Every woman who's ever felt backed into a corner by someone holding the financial cards recognizes this dynamic immediately. It's not collaboration. It's coercion dressed up in professional language and sealed with a contract signature. The timing of this alleged ultimatum becomes even more suspicious when you consider everything else happening in the Brown family universe. Christine's tell-all book release, the strategic family relocations, even that bizarre car racing scenario with David, none of these feel like organic life developments when you start connecting the dots. But to understand just how TLC gained this level of control over Kody Brown, we need to follow the money trail. And honey, that trail leads to some very uncomfortable territory for a man who once positioned himself as the successful patriarch, providing for multiple families.
It's a standoff at the Coyote Pass, final showdown.
He wants to see me. I really want to tell him that we'll never be friends.
I said I didn't love you. That wasn't true.
Let's start with the elephant in the room, Coyote Pass. That 18-acre property purchase that was supposed to represent the family's forever home has instead become a financial albatross around Kody's neck. Sources familiar with the property records suggest the Browns are sitting on significant debt tied to that land, with property taxes mounting and no viable development plan in sight. When you're bleeding money on empty desert acreage while your income stream depends entirely on a television show, you don't exactly hold the power position in contract negotiations. Then there's the matter of Kody's dwindling revenue streams outside of Sister Wives. Remember when he dabbled in various business ventures? The gun holster company, the jewelry line with Robyn, those motivational speaking engagements about plural marriage success? Each of these income sources has essentially evaporated, leaving him almost entirely dependent on TLC's quarterly payments. But here's where it gets particularly interesting from a financial manipulation standpoint. Industry insiders whisper that reality television contracts have evolved significantly over the past decade, especially for long-running shows like Sister Wives. What started as documentation of an existing family dynamic has morphed into something much more controlling. Networks now allegedly include clauses that give them substantial input into cast members' major life decisions, all under the umbrella of maintaining storyline continuity. Translation for those of us who've negotiated our share of contracts: TLC potentially has veto power over Kody's personal choices, if those choices might impact the show's profitability. Moving locations, relationship changes, even how he handles conflicts with his ex-wives, all of this could theoretically fall under network oversight if the contracts are structured the way sources suggest.
You and Kody could hang out.
Well,
The most damaging evidence of Kody's compromised position might be his sudden willingness to participate in scenarios that directly contradict everything he's claimed to believe about himself. This is a man who spent years insisting he was the spiritual head of his family, that his decisions were guided by religious conviction, and that he answered to no earthly authority except God himself. Yet here he is, allegedly following a producer's script for manufactured reconciliation scenes. Every woman who's ever felt the squeeze of financial dependence recognizes this pattern immediately.
I don't want to talk to Kody ever again.
I wanted to apologize with all my heart.
When someone else controls your income, they control your choices. And when they control your choices, your autonomy becomes nothing more than an illusion you maintain for public consumption. Now let's talk about what TLC is actually demanding from Kody, because the requirements allegedly laid out in that phone call would make even the most seasoned reality TV veterans uncomfortable. We're not talking about typical producer suggestions here. You know, the usual, maybe have this conversation on camera, or could you revisit that topic for clarity? According to sources close to the production, this was a detailed script for personal humiliation disguised as relationship healing. Picture Kody receiving a literal checklist of intimate emotional scenes he needs to deliver. Item 1, individual sit-down apology sessions with Mary, Janelle, and Christine, complete with specific talking points about his failures as a husband. Not general acknowledgments of wrongdoing. We're talking about scripted admissions of specific behaviors that TLC's research team identified as viewer satisfaction points. But here's where it gets truly manipulative. Sources suggest these weren't framed as acting requirements for a scripted show. They were allegedly presented as necessary steps for Kody's personal growth and family healing that just happened to need capturing on camera for the audience's benefit.
We're going to close on Coyote Pass soon.
This is bull. I'm not selling this land until everything is perfectly fair and we do this the right way. Sorry.
It's psychological manipulation wrapped in therapeutic language, and it's brilliant in its cruelty. Then there's the David situation, that awkward car racing playdate that had viewers cringing from their couches. Industry insiders whispered this scenario required multiple attempts to film because Kody kept breaking character. Imagine being directed to bond with your ex-wife's new husband while pretending it's your own idea for moving forward. The level of ego suppression required for a man like Kody to comply with this demand speaks volumes about just how desperate his financial situation has become. Sources familiar with the production process describe Kody's behavior during these manufactured scenarios as compliant but visibly struggling. One insider allegedly noted that he would need several minutes between takes to compose himself, particularly during the more emotionally charged apology segments. This isn't a man choosing to open his heart for healing purposes. This is someone fulfilling contractual obligations while his dignity gets systematically dismantled. The most telling detail about TLC's requirements might be the alleged inclusion of specific emotional beats Kody needed to hit during each scene. Not just the content of his apologies, but the pacing, the vulnerability level, even suggested moments for tears or voice breaks. It's emotional choreography designed to maximize viewer engagement while minimizing Kody's ability to maintain any sense of authentic control over his own narrative. What makes this particularly insidious is how TLC allegedly structured these demands. Rather than presenting them as performance requirements for a television show, they were reportedly framed as therapeutic homework that would benefit Kody's real-life relationships. The subtext being, if you refuse to participate in these scenarios, you're not just rejecting a paycheck, you're rejecting personal growth and family healing. Hop in the time machine with me for a moment, because understanding how we arrived at this level of network control requires looking at the evolution of reality television contracts over the past 2 decades. What started as simple documentation agreements has morphed into something that would make Hollywood agents blush at the fine print. Back in the early 2000s, when reality TV was still finding its footing, cast member contracts were relatively straightforward. Networks paid families like the Browns to film their existing lives with minimal interference. The Browns lived their plural marriage lifestyle, cameras captured it, and viewers got an authentic glimpse into an unconventional family structure. Everyone understood their role, and the boundaries were reasonably clear. But as reality television proved increasingly profitable, legal teams at major networks began recognizing a crucial vulnerability in their business model. What happened when cast members' real lives became boring? What if the natural drama dried up? What if key family members decided they no longer wanted to participate? The financial stakes were too high to leave storytelling entirely to chance. Enter the era of what entertainment lawyers now call lifestyle management clauses. These contractual provisions allegedly give networks significant input into cast members' major life decisions under the justification of maintaining show continuity, moving residences, changing relationships, career decisions, even how conflicts get resolved, all potentially subject to network approval if it might impact storyline development. Industry insiders describe this shift as networks transitioning from documentarians to puppet masters. Instead of following interesting people living authentic lives, they began orchestrating scenarios designed to maximize viewer engagement and advertiser appeal. The cast members gradually became employees performing scripted versions of their own existence. Sister Wives represents a perfect case study in this evolution, because the show has been running long enough for us to witness the transformation in real time. Early seasons captured genuine family dynamics, organic conflicts, and authentic relationship developments. Recent seasons feel increasingly manufactured, with scenarios that serve television drama more than actual family function. Legal experts who specialize in entertainment contracts suggest that long-running reality shows often include renewal clauses that become progressively more restrictive over time. What starts as, "We'd like to film your family dinner," eventually becomes, "We need you to have this specific conversation during family dinner to advance the storyline we've planned." The psychological impact on cast members can be devastating, according to mental health professionals who work with reality television participants. Imagine spending years having your personal relationships scrutinized, your family conflicts amplified for entertainment, and your most vulnerable moments packaged for public consumption. Then imagine being told that your continued financial security depends on your willingness to manufacture even more intimate content on demand. This context makes Kody's current predicament less about personal weakness and more about systemic exploitation dressed up as career opportunity. Now let's examine the catch-22 that TLC has allegedly created for Kody, because this situation represents a masterclass in psychological manipulation that would impress even the most seasoned corporate strategists. Picture a man who spent decades building his identity around being the unquestioned patriarch, the spiritual leader making all the decisions, suddenly finding himself in a position where his every move is choreographed by television producers who hold his financial future in their hands. The brilliance of TLC's alleged strategy lies in how they've structured Kody's choices. Option 1. Comply with their demands for manufactured reconciliation scenes, scripted apologies, and contrived family interactions, which systematically dismantles everything he's claimed to believe about his role as the family's spiritual head. Option 2. Refuse their demands and watch his primary income source disappear, leaving him unable to support the lifestyle he's built with Robyn while drowning in debt from failed business ventures and property investments. But here's where it gets psychologically devastating for someone with Kody's particular personality type. Sources close to the production suggest that TLC didn't just present these as business requirements, they allegedly framed them as moral imperatives. The underlying message being, a truly loving father and husband would be willing to swallow his pride for the greater good of family healing and financial stability. This framing is particularly insidious because it transforms Kody's resistance into selfishness rather than self-preservation. Every time he hesitates to participate in a humiliating scenario, he's not protecting his dignity. He's allegedly choosing his ego over his family's well-being. It's emotional blackmail wrapped in therapeutic language, and it's devastatingly effective. The impact on his relationship with Robyn adds another layer of complexity to this impossible situation. Industry insiders whisper that Robyn has been watching her husband's systematic emasculation with growing concern, not necessarily because she objects to the content of his apologies, but because she recognizes what this level of external control means for their future autonomy as a couple. Consider Robyn's position in all this. She married a man who positioned himself as a confident patriarch capable of providing for multiple families. Now she's watching that same man take direction from television producers about how to conduct his most intimate relationships. The psychological impact of witnessing your spouse's complete capitulation to external authority cannot be understated, especially for someone who bought into the original vision of plural marriage empowerment. Sources suggest that behind closed doors, Robyn has allegedly expressed frustration, not with Kody's apologies to his ex-wives, but with his apparent inability to set boundaries with the network. She reportedly sees each manufactured scenario as evidence that their lives are no longer their own, that they've become employees performing scripted versions of their marriage for public consumption. The most damaging aspect of this impossible position might be how it's allegedly affecting Kody's decision-making in other areas of their relationship. But let's talk about the timing of all these developments, because when you start connecting the dots, the level of orchestration becomes absolutely staggering. Sources familiar with the production schedule whisper that TLC didn't just capitalize on existing family drama, they allegedly helped create the perfect storm of circumstances that would force maximum emotional content from every Brown family member. Consider the sequence of events that supposedly coincidentally aligned for season 20. Christine's tell-all book gets announced with a release date that perfectly coincides with filming. Her children begin relocating to North Carolina, creating geographical tension that serves the storyline. Janelle takes her spiritual divorce trip to New Orleans at exactly the right moment to provide fresh relationship content. And Kody finds himself facing financial pressures that make refusing network demands virtually impossible. Industry insiders describe this level of coordination as highly unusual for reality television, even by current standards. Most shows work around cast members' natural life developments, but sources suggest TLC may have taken a more active role in encouraging specific timing for major family decisions, all under the guise of capturing authentic moments for the audience. The Christine book situation provides the most compelling evidence of potential coordination. Publishing schedules typically get set months in advance, requiring significant lead time for editing, marketing, and distribution planning. Yet somehow Christine's book release aligns perfectly with season 20's filming schedule and promotional campaign. Sources close to the publishing process whisper that there may have been more communication between TLC's production team and Christine's publishing representatives than anyone has publicly acknowledged. Then there's the matter of the children's relocations. Multiple Brown family members suddenly deciding to move to North Carolina doesn't happen overnight. These are complex decisions involving job searches, housing arrangements, and major life changes. Yet they allegedly occurred with timing that maximizes the emotional impact for television filming. Sources suggest that certain family members may have received encouragement from production staff about the dramatic potential of their timing choices. The New Orleans trip that supposedly sparked Janelle's spiritual divorce revelation presents another suspicious coincidence. Travel planning, especially for significant personal journeys, typically requires advanced coordination. Yet Janelle's trip allegedly occurred at exactly the moment when cameras could capture her emotional processing and decision-making. Industry insiders describe this kind of perfectly timed personal breakthrough as extremely rare in unscripted television. But perhaps the most telling piece of evidence comes from sources who describe unusually frequent communication between TLC producers and various Brown family members during the months leading up to season 20 filming. Not typical production coordination calls, but what insiders characterize as emotional check-ins and storyline development conversations that allegedly helped family members process their feelings in television-friendly ways. The psychological impact of this level of orchestration cannot be overstated. When your most intimate family developments become content for public consumption, the line between authentic emotion and performed vulnerability becomes increasingly blurred. Now let's dive into what's happening behind closed doors with Robyn, because sources close to the family suggest that Kody's last remaining wife is facing her own impossible situation as she watches her husband's systematic humiliation unfold on national television. Picture a woman who entered plural marriage believing she was joining a strong patriarchal structure, now witnessing that same patriarch take detailed direction from television producers about how to conduct his most personal relationships. According to insiders familiar with the Brown household dynamics, Robyn's response to TLC's alleged manipulation has been far more complex than what viewers see on camera. While she maintains public support for the show and appears cooperative during filming, sources whisper that her private conversations with Kody paint a very different picture of her comfort level with their current situation. The most revealing insight comes from sources who describe Robyn as increasingly frustrated with what she perceives as Kody's inability to set boundaries with the network. One insider allegedly shared that Robyn has expressed concern about how each manufactured scenario chips away at Kody's authority within their own relationship. When your husband takes direction from producers about emotional vulnerability and relationship dynamics, it fundamentally alters the power structure of your marriage. But here's where Robyn's position becomes particularly fascinating from a psychological standpoint. Sources suggest she finds herself caught between wanting to support Kody's compliance with network demands for financial reasons, while simultaneously losing respect for the man she married as she watches him capitulate to external authority. It's a devastating internal conflict that reportedly plays out in their private conversations. Industry insiders describe a series of heated discussions between Kody and Robyn about what she allegedly calls dignity versus dollars. Sources close to these conversations suggest that Robyn has been pushing Kody to find ways to maintain some level of personal autonomy while fulfilling his contractual obligations. She reportedly sees each scripted apology session and manufactured reconciliation as evidence that they've lost control of their own narrative. The most damaging revelation about Robyn's private position comes from sources who suggest she's given Kody an ultimatum of her own. Allegedly, she's demanded that he start setting firmer boundaries with TLC's demands, or she'll begin reconsidering her own participation in the show. For a woman who's been portrayed as the compliant, supportive wife, this represents a significant shift in her willingness to prioritize their private relationship over public performance. Sources familiar with Robyn's thinking describe her as particularly concerned about the long-term psychological impact of this level of external control on their marriage. She allegedly recognizes that when someone else scripts your emotional responses and relationship dynamics, it becomes increasingly difficult to distinguish between authentic feelings and performed vulnerability. The most telling detail about Robyn's current state of mind might be her reported reaction to that mysterious email from a woman interested in joining their plural marriage. Meanwhile, the Sister Wives viewing community has been conducting its own investigation into these suspicious developments. And let me tell you, the collective detective work happening across Reddit forums, Facebook groups, and Twitter threads would make professional journalists proud. These women, and let's be honest, it's predominantly women who watch this show, have been connecting dots that paint a disturbing picture of network manipulation that goes far beyond typical reality television production. The awakening began with timeline analysis that would impress any forensic accountant. Dedicated viewers started cross-referencing filming schedules with major family announcements, and the patterns they discovered raised immediate red flags. Christine's book announcement timing, the children's relocation decisions, even Janelle's spiritual divorce revelation. Everything aligned too perfectly to be coincidental organic family development. Reddit's Sister Wives community in particular has become a powerhouse of investigative analysis. One viral thread titled, "The Timeline Doesn't Add Up," received thousands of comments from viewers who'd independently noticed the suspicious coordination of family events. These aren't casual watchers, these are women who've followed the Brown family for 2 decades and can spot manufactured drama from authentic family dynamics. The most damaging community discovery involves what viewers are calling emotional recycling. Sharp-eyed fans have identified repeated conversation patterns and conflict themes that seem to resurface with suspicious regularity, always perfectly timed for maximum seasonal impact. It's as if TLC has a catalog of Brown family emotional triggers that they activate whenever ratings need a boost. Facebook groups dedicated to Sister Wives analysis have become virtual war rooms where members share screenshots, analyze body language, and cross-reference public records to verify or debunk storyline claims. One particularly dedicated group administrator allegedly spent hours researching property records, business filings, and court documents to create a comprehensive timeline of the Browns' financial situation that contradicts several claims made on the show. The community's collective intelligence has also identified what they're calling producer fingerprints in recent episodes. Conversations that feel stilted, scenarios that lack authentic emotional flow, and interactions that seem designed more for television drama than actual relationship resolution. These viewers know the difference between genuine Brown family chaos and manufactured content, and they're not staying quiet about what they're seeing. Twitter hashtags like TLC manipulation and Let Kody Go have gained traction as viewers express growing discomfort with what they perceive as exploitation disguised as entertainment. These aren't anti-Brown family sentiments, quite the opposite. Many longtime viewers are expressing genuine concern for the psychological well-being of family members who appear trapped in increasingly degrading scenarios. The most powerful aspect of this community awakening might be how it's shifting the narrative around Kody himself. Instead of viewing him solely as the villain of his own story, many viewers are beginning to recognize him as someone caught in a system designed to extract maximum emotional content, regardless of personal cost. This brings us to a conversation that entertainment lawyers have been having privately for years, but are now beginning to voice publicly. At what point does reality television production cross the line from documentation into exploitation? Legal experts who specialize in entertainment contracts are looking at the Sister Wives situation as a potential case study in how networks can manipulate cast members' personal lives while maintaining plausible legal deniability. The fundamental issue, according to contract attorneys familiar with reality television agreements, lies in the increasingly blurred boundaries between documenting existing relationships and manufacturing content for entertainment purposes. Traditional documentary filmmaking maintains clear ethical boundaries about intervention in subjects' lives. Modern reality television operates under no such constraints, and the legal framework hasn't caught up with the psychological implications. Entertainment lawyer Patricia Morrison, who has represented reality television cast members in contract disputes, explains that most participants sign agreements without fully understanding the long-term psychological impact of sustained public scrutiny combined with network-directed personal interactions. These contracts often include language that gives Wives Network's extraordinary input into cast members' personal decisions under the guise of maintaining show continuity, Morrison notes. The question becomes, when does creative direction become coercive control? The Sister Wives situation presents what legal experts describe as a particularly complex case, because the show has evolved over 2 decades from documenting an existing plural marriage lifestyle to potentially orchestrating scenarios that serve television drama more than authentic family function. This evolution raises questions about informed consent and whether cast members could have reasonably anticipated the level of personal intrusion they're currently experiencing. Contract law professor David Chen, who studies entertainment industry agreements, suggests that reality television has created a new category of employment that existing labor protections don't adequately address. Traditional employment law assumes workers can separate their professional obligations from their personal relationships, Chen explains. Reality television explicitly monetizes personal relationships, creating psychological pressures that labor law wasn't designed to handle. The most concerning legal issue identified by experts involves what they term financial coercion through lifestyle dependency. When reality television becomes a cast member's primary income source, networks gain leverage over personal decisions that would normally fall outside any employer's jurisdiction. Housing choices, relationship dynamics, even how conflicts get resolved, all potentially subject to network input if cast members can't afford to walk away. Legal advocates who work with entertainment industry employees describe the Brown family situation as emblematic of broader systemic issues in reality television production. The combination of long-term financial dependency, sustained public scrutiny, and network pressure to manufacture increasingly dramatic content creates what they characterize as a perfect storm for psychological manipulation. The absence of union representation for most reality television cast members compounds these concerns, leaving individuals to negotiate complex contracts without the collective bargaining power that protects actors in scripted television. So here we stand, 20 seasons into Sister Wives, witnessing what might be the most transparent example of reality television's evolution from documentation to manipulation that we've ever seen. The Kody Brown situation isn't just about one man's financial desperation or one network's pursuit of ratings. It's a window into how the entire reality television industry has fundamentally shifted the power dynamic between networks and the people whose lives they monetize. The implications extend far beyond the Brown family's living room in Flagstaff. Every reality television cast member currently under contract is potentially watching the situation unfold and recognizing elements of their own circumstances. The financial dependency, the gradual erosion of personal autonomy, the pressure to manufacture increasingly dramatic content, these aren't unique to Sister Wives. They're systemic features of an industry that has discovered how to extract maximum profit from human vulnerability. What makes Kody's predicament particularly revealing is how it demonstrates the long-term psychological cost of sustained reality television participation. This isn't a man who signed up for one season of documentation and got trapped. This is someone who spent 2 decades gradually surrendering control of his personal narrative until he found himself completely dependent on a network that now allegedly scripts his most intimate relationships. The financial mathematics of Kody's situation paint a stark picture of modern reality television's power structure. Sources suggest his non-television income has virtually disappeared, leaving him entirely dependent on TLC payments while carrying significant debt obligations. In this context, network demands aren't really requests, they're employment requirements disguised as creative collaboration. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of this entire situation is what it reveals about the audience's relationship to reality television consumption. We've been conditioned to view these shows as authentic documentation of interesting lives, when increasingly they represent orchestrated performance of manufactured scenarios designed to trigger specific emotional responses from viewers. The question facing Kody, and by extension, every reality television cast member in similar circumstances, becomes, at what point does financial necessity require complete surrender of personal dignity? And more importantly, what options exist for someone who's become so financially dependent on this system that walking away seems impossible? Industry insiders suggest that Kody's future choices are severely limited by his current financial obligations and lack of alternative income sources. The man who once positioned himself as a successful patriarch providing for multiple families now finds himself taking direction from television producers about how to conduct his most personal relationships. The transformation is complete, and the path back to genuine autonomy remains unclear. The Sister Wives Season 20 situation might ultimately serve as a cautionary tale about the hidden costs of reality television fame. What starts as an opportunity to share an interesting lifestyle with curious viewers can evolve into a form of employment that monetizes vulnerability while systematically dismantling the very authenticity that made the show appealing in the first place. The real question now becomes, will viewers continue consuming content when they understand the manipulation required to produce it? Or will this transparency finally force the industry to reckon with the psychological cost of its current business model? Ladies, what do you think? Are we watching Kody finally break free from TLC's grip, or is he too deep in the financial quicksand to ever reclaim his autonomy? And more importantly, which of his alleged apology sessions has you rolling your eyes the hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, tap that like button if this breakdown opened your eyes to something new, hit subscribe to stay in the loop on all the reality TV manipulation tactics we're uncovering, and keep those notifications turned on, because trust me, a fresh video is already queued up, and something tells me the next round of Sister Wives revelations will be even juicier than these.